Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight for this month's edition of the Real World Parenting session put on by Family Service and Guidance Center. This month is National Suicide Prevention Month. It is a very difficult topic to talk about. Kudos to you all for being here tonight to hopefully take home some new information and some help for you and your children as times are definitely tough, especially these days after the past 18 months. So I'm Pam Evans. I head up the marketing and development here for Family Service and Guidance Center. Hopefully you're familiar with us, but just in case you're not, we are a community mental health center here in Topeka that specializes in treating kids up to the age of 18. A lot of our kids struggle with things like anxiety, depression, ADHD. We treat a wide variety of different challenges, lots of programs and services. I'm not going to get into that tonight, but we're really pleased to be providing these free real-world parenting sessions for you, because that is why we wanted to put these together. You all submitted questions in advance, so thank you so much. Tina took a look at all of them and she said, boy, I think I've already got a lot of these questions covered, but please do not hesitate. We want to make sure you leave tonight with your questions answered to the best of our ability. Sometimes it gets into a lot of detail. We might not be able to get down to, the nitty gritty in this call, but nonetheless, we are here for you tonight. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. If you need a certificate of participation completion, please type your first and last name in the chat box. That way we can make sure we get that sent to you tomorrow or first thing next week. And like I mentioned, we are recording this session because we do post these on our website after the fact, as we kind of continue to build resources for parents and caregivers in the community. Enough of me. I'm going to introduce you to our very amazing crisis clinician who's going to be leading the discussion today, Miss Tina Brackman. Tina, would you like to introduce yourself? And I will, after you get going, I will share your PowerPoint, share screen.
Hello, I am Tina Brackman. I have an LPC, which is a licensed practicing counseling degree and licensure. And I also have a master's in art therapy, which means I'm not only a clinical counselor, but I'm also an art therapist. I have 2 degrees in that. Those. I am working at Family Service as a crisis clinician. I've been here for a few years now, and I specifically work with people who are in crisis. So suicide is what I deal with on a very regular basis. I see absolutely no faces today. Is anyone willing to turn on their cameras so we can do a real quick kind of welcome? I have one thing I want to work on, and I'd love to see all of your faces. I know that probably just created a whole bunch of anxiety.
I'm trying to get it.
Oh, we got everybody else. Hello. Judy, Megan, Melinda, and KG. Can I see your faces too? Maybe. Oh, I got one. Hello. Got KG. Do I get the other 3? Maybe not. Okay. Oh, someone's in the car and able to listen. I hear you. Thank you very much, Megan, for telling me that. All right. Hello, Miss Judy. Melinda. Okay. So what I'm going to have you do is we're going to start by doing one activity first. And then after that, you guys don't have to talk unless you absolutely want to. Thank you, Melinda. We've got 2 driving. Please, please, please be careful. Okay. I don't want anything to happen to you. I want you to turn on your mics and I want you to say a word. It's going to sound horrible through the thing because we're all going to say it. You're all going to say it at the same time. But I want everyone to turn on their mics and I want you to say the word suicide.
Suicide. Like on a count of like 3?
Yeah, nope, just say it.
Suicide.
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 Do it again.
Suicide.
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 Suicide. Okay. Feel free to close off your mics and turn off your phones if you want, because I'm going to jump right in. Today, we're talking about suicide. We don't need to be afraid of that word. I don't want anyone to be afraid of it. The most important thing that we need to remember through all of this is that there's a major stigma behind people that complete suicides. And the stigma is that we can't talk about it. And the main thing that we need to remember is that this is a very serious topic. And we want it to become something that we can talk about very regularly in the home. In order to do that, we have to be able to say the word. So I'm going to be saying the word suicide a lot. And if you're not used to that or not comfortable with it, it needs to start being said more frequently so that we can get used to it. Pam, can I have my... I mean, I can just go off the top of my head and start talking about it. So tonight we're actually going to talk about 2 main topics. The first topic is going to be the questions that you ask when you're talking to someone about suicide. There's 3 big ones. And, you know, once we get through the 3 big questions and everybody learns that these questions are okay to ask, then we'll move forward from there. The second thing that we're going to talk about, thanks. I don't have any control over that, do I? The second main thing we're going to talk about is how to recognize suicidal ideation, how to talk about it, how to accept it, how to start checking in with people. There we go. And those are literally the main things. And those were actually basically the questions that people were asking me. So we're just going to kind of jump right in. We're going to go to the next slide, please, Pam. Oh, never mind. Do I have control of that? I don't have control of that, do I? No. Okay. So the first question, you know, it doesn't matter who you're talking to. You can talk to an adult, you can talk to a child. Obviously, I deal with children. I deal with children from ages, I think it's like 4 up to like 18. I usually don't get anyone younger than that. When I do get people younger than that, I don't really talk about suicide because that's harder, right? Like they don't really know what that means. So we're going to adjust the questions for kids that are younger. But obviously the first thing that we're going to get comfortable with asking is, have you been feeling suicidal? Because that's what we want to know. If the answer is yes, then we have to get more serious with our question. Okay, well, do you have a plan? And I know you guys are looking at me and probably like, how the heck does she say that so easily? Why is it so fluid? It's because I say suicide a lot during the day. I say suicide a lot. I talk about people having a plan, and you need to find out how serious they are, especially with children. You want to ask them, if this is your child, then you are going to have to go through some steps. But main thing, you want to find out if they've hurt themselves. Have you hurt yourself? Have you thought about hurting yourself? And again, next question, have you talked to someone about it? That's another really big one. You also want to ask, what can I do to help you now? Right? That's a major question as well, because sometimes if somebody's feeling suicidal, they may be feeling suicidal and not have any intent to actually hurt themselves. If you have a younger child that you're talking to and you use that word, they're going to be like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. You can ask a simple question to say, well, have you ever wanted to go to sleep and never wake up? Let them sit with that. You sit with that, right? Because that means that they're going to be like, what do you mean never wake up, right? Little kids may have that question. Usually I get that question if kids are under the age of 9, maybe under the age of 8. And they usually look at me and ask, why would I want to do that? I'm like, okay, automatically I know in my head, okay, they don't know what that means. So sometimes when they're making the statements of, oh, I just want to die, So does that mean that you just want to go hide for a really long time under your blankets until whatever's happening goes away? Or do you want to go under there and never, ever, ever come out and see me ever again? If you feel like there's something more to this statement, especially for a younger, you definitely want to ask them, tell me how you're feeling. Tell me a little bit about what's going on. Or even better, would you like to go talk to someone about that? Have you told anyone what's going on? So let's kind of go forward to the next part, to the how-tos of how to recognize, because I know that's kind of the next thing that people are really worried about the most. And I know that there'll be questions and I'm kind of talking fast, but this is just kind of to go forward and keep moving, because I'd rather get to your questions. I feel like that's kind of better. Judy, I see that you're writing stuff down. Are you doing all right with writing? Is it okay if we move to the next slide? Yep. Okay. So the next thing is how-tos of suicidal ideation. Now, I use suicidal ideation because that means thinking. Ideation is the thought process. And so the first one is, oh my gosh. Oh, okay. Oh, that got split into 2 slides. Got it. The first one is recognizing. So the things that you want to look for in someone who is possibly thinking about killing themselves, right? See, how did that feel for a lot of people when I said that? When you're thinking about killing yourself, it's probably a little bit of stigma on like, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that. When you want to recognize something like that, you're looking for a lot of comments about death or dying, them feeling like hopeless or like they're a burden, out of the norm behaviors. So isolation is one thing, right? So if the child is spending a lot of time in their room, if they're super quiet, if they cry a lot, mood changes, right? If their moods can go to different sides. Self-harm is a real thing. That means there are lots of different ways that kids self-harm. I won't go into all of them. One of the main ones that people recognize the most is cutting. The other is burning. So if you notice that your child is wearing longer sleeves and it's like 90 degrees outside, if they're wearing turtlenecks and it's 90 degrees outside, long pants, those are things that if it's out of the norm for your child to do that, start asking some questions. Are you feeling okay? Is there anything you want to talk about? Have you been feeling suicidal? I notice you're talking a lot about death. Tell me what you mean by that. Those are things that you can ask as a parent that won't be therapeutic, right? And again, if you feel like you need help, I'm going to give you some numbers at the end. The other thing that you want to look for are extreme mood changes. It can go from screaming and yelling, kicking and throwing things that your child doesn't normally do and screaming, I just want to die, I want to kill myself, to grabbing things and holding knives in their hand or holding, other items. I mean, they find all kinds of things. It's really kind of interesting. Or making statements like, it's just not worth it, I don't care anymore, and crying and sobbing uncontrollably. The next thing you want to do is be able to approach it. That's the next how-to of dealing with suicidal ideation. The number one thing that you have to remember as a parent, as I think I have a provider that's on here, is to manage your own reactions. So you need to check in with yourself. That's why I said, say suicide, say death, say dying, say all of those things. And if you make them more common speak, it will become easier for you to have those conversations without kind of talking in circles around it, without being afraid of approaching that person that you're talking to. Definitely don't come with an adverse reaction. So non-adverse reaction means, what are you talking about? What do you mean you want to die? You have blah, 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 right? Like all of a sudden your child is going to feel like, oh, okay, well, I can't have this feeling. This is where we have to check our emotions specifically, right? Your emotions matter too. It's okay to be afraid for you. It's okay to be worried about that. But we need to be careful about our tone, our delivery, and our wording. So that means—
would it be bad if, like, when you're asking them about that, to have like sorrow in your voice, is that still aversive or?
So it's okay to have a feeling attached to it. I would caution against how much sorrow, right? So you don't want to be placing blame. You have to make sure that their emotions come first, because their emotions are the ones that you're checking on, not yours. And so tone, delivery, wording, listening is a huge thing. Because if you go back up to recognizing, what's one of the things that they're commenting on a lot? Being a burden, feeling hopeless, right? If they feel like they're having to deal with your emotion, how are they going to say that my emotions matter, that this is how I'm feeling right now? And I'm not saying it's not okay for you to feel like that. I'm saying when you're making the approach, it's going to be better to listen without judgment and to offer that comfort that they need. And by offering that, you're going to do it with a tone and this wording and this approach and this delivery that's going to be empathetic, because that's what we're really looking for. That's what they're really looking for when they come to you and say, I'm feeling like I want to die. I don't want to be a burden to you anymore. I know that all of these things that I'm doing are causing you pain. I know that I am causing you hurt and heartache, and I am causing all of these teachers, you know, if it's a younger or older kid, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. Say, okay, that's when you go back to the question, what can I do to help you? How can I be here for you? Because I want to be here for you. Let's go to the next one. So understanding, communication is key. This having a suicidal thought, having the intention to kill yourself, that is going to make sense to the person who has these suicidal thoughts. The person that is feeling that way in the moment is going to believe that this is the only way to solve that issue. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to make sense to you, because it probably won't. Some kids want to kill themselves because they ripped a paper in a book and it's the last straw of the day. Some kids have very extensive trauma, and they don't know how to deal with that trauma, and it comes out in ways of wanting to self-harm, and that self-harm can lead to suicide. So it may not make sense to you as to why it's happening, why it's coming out right now in that moment. Your goal is to be there for them in a way that is genuine and that is empathetic and that will be there continually as a support. The last thing is going to be to learn how to check in with yourself, to check in with the child. Ask them, is it going to be helpful if I check in with you on a regular basis? How often is too much? Should we contact crisis? Do you think that this is something that we can handle together, or do we need to have a therapist? You want to do this without giving them shame for how they're feeling, because a lot of times when parents or even adults approach a child who has suicide, this is where shame becomes an issue. We start placing that feeling, without recognizing that it's a burden, our feelings onto them by saying, if you die, I'm just going to feel so sad and it's just going to make me feel terrible. Well, this isn't about you. This is about them. So in that moment when they're feeling like that, it's okay to say, I love you. I care about you. I want to be here for you. How may I be here to help you? Right? These are the times to take your emotions and kind of put them to the side until you can deal with it with another adult or with your own therapist, so that you have the opportunity to really be there in that present moment and listen to them. If it's a child who's under the age of 10, 12, you really want to give them the opportunity to say how they're feeling, because maybe they're using the word death, burden, hopeless, heavy, for really not being able to find the right words to say, I'm sad, I am feeling a lot of pain, or I'm suffering. Suffering is a word that kids don't recognize continually. Yeah. So that's, those are the kind of the easiest ways to get started. The conversations is to start really opening up and saying the words. I'm going to jump right into some of the questions that you guys have already kind of wrote out. And, one of them was like, how do you bring this up if you're unsure that your child's never even heard of suicide, and what age is right? The age that's right is when they start talking about, wanting to die or feeling like, oh, I'm just a burden, I might as well just leave. Like little kids will kind of take it to the extreme. If they do, then you can really just ask them, well, when you say that, do you really mean it? And then that's a check-in. And you can say, well, that concerns me when you say that, because I want to make sure that I'm here for you in the right way. Do you need to talk to somebody? The other thing is that, when you want to know if your child heard you, somebody asked that question, how do you know when your child heard you? Trust me, kids are listening and seeing everything that we're doing. They may not get all the to's and ands and buts and does that are in the sentences, but if you put emphasis on, do you want to die? They'll really think about that. And if you're concerned and you feel like you can't, like you're having difficulty talking to your child about it, that's when you start bringing in the professionals, calling a therapist, setting up appointments with a crisis clinician if it's in the moment of need, definitely calling suicide hotline if you feel that that's age appropriate for your child, talking to it about with the school providers to make sure that the school providers know where your child is in that type of need. In order to engage them in the conversation, it's really going to be about what is it that their need is in that moment. They're engaged, and sometimes the only thing they need is somebody to listen. And if they need someone to listen, y'all are doing a great job sitting here listening to me from what I know, which means you know how to do it. And it's about being there in the moment with them. Ask them about their day. If they're having a tantrum and throwing a fit because you said that you were making macaroni and cheese for dinner and you weren't going to make the tuna salad sandwich, I don't know why I said that. Guess what? They probably had a bad day and they just wanted someone to give them something that they needed. So in that moment, stop what you're doing, turn around and ask them, how was your day? Do you need a hug? What's going on? Those simple few moments are enough, because if they go, I was talking to Kimmy today and she just wouldn't play with me in the sandbox, right? All of a sudden you found out what the core of the issue is. And it may not be that you're not making macaroni and cheese, that you're making macaroni and cheese and not a tuna salad, right? It's that they weren't feeling heard today. And sometimes that's enough to change that bad day into a good day. I think I kind of talked about how to talk to younger kids. Someone said that they have a 7-year-old that made suicidal comments. He's in therapy, and whoever that is, I am very proud of you for taking this seriously. And what you are doing is exactly what you should be doing. Taking them to a therapist, talking to the school, go back to my PowerPoint, do the check-ins every day. Hey, how are you feeling? Check in with the suicide. Are you still feeling suicidal today? Well, tell me a little bit about your day. Take that 10 minutes, that 15 minutes when you get home to that's your decompress mode, right? Take your 5 minutes, separate for the 5 minutes, take off your shoes, put the book bags and the purses away, and then go have that conversation. Hey, how was your day? Nothing says you have to start dinner right when you get home, right? Give them a cheese stick or something and say, hey, let's sit down and have cheese sticks and talk about your day, right? That sometimes is enough to kind of get it started. Did you have any suicidal thoughts while you were at school? Because if they're already talking about it, it needs to start becoming a regular habit to talk about it in the home. Like I started in the beginning. I know all your mics are off, but feel free to turn them back on because we're going to say it again. Suicide. I want to hear it.
Suicide.
Here's one. Suicide. There we go. Suicide.
Current.
Suicide. It's a word that we have to get comfortable using. If we don't get comfortable using, then how are we going to learn to ask the questions, right? One of the ones that I really wanted to touch on was if the child self-harms or has threatened suicide, are there warnings that this might be the real deal? If they are harming themselves, you definitely need to take this seriously. They're asking for your help. They're telling you that they need help. So your first question is going to be, how much are they hurting themselves? How often? Do we need to, like, I don't know what this person is using for self-harm. Do we need to like sweep the house and take all the things that you're using to self-harm and thinking about killing yourself with out of your grasp? Do we need to go to therapy? I'm going to say yes. And definitely you need to start making sure that this person is feeling safe, because if we don't do check-ins with them, how are you going to know? The 18-year-old question, I'm going to tell you, you can't convince an 18-year-old to do anything, but you can let them know just by saying it over and over again. It's okay that you're not feeling good. Let's talk about it. Let's sit here. I'll listen. I'll be here for you. Because sometimes that's all they need. They need to know that they can talk to someone about what's going on. I mean, suicide has become so closeted that it's becoming more frequently up in the news. And we need to be more open about asking the question, are you feeling suicidal? Does anyone have any other questions?
So I just started as a school psychologist, so I haven't had a suicide assessment or anything happen to me yet. But I was just wondering, like, how do you, like, I'm required to report it to the parents, of course, but like, how do you go about being like, hey, this happens?
So I'm a crisis clinician, which is why I seem a little harsh. When we talk about suicide, we literally just say it. When I have to talk to a parent because I found out that their child has been self-harming, they're having suicidal thoughts, I'm thinking of hospitalization, because hospitalization is a real thing, and I assess for it daily. When I do that, especially as a therapist, I take off that sensitive hat and I put on that therapist hat and I say, this is serious, I need to talk to you. And I will just kind of come out and say it honestly. I'm going to say, look, I've been talking to Brittany and she told me today about some serious factors and I need you to know. She's been feeling suicidal. I'm considering the fact that we need to look at hospitalization, and usually the parent is going to cry. So you got to, again, check your own emotions, right? If this is something that you're not comfortable dealing with, before you call that parent, you need to check your emotions. Take a deep breath, count to 10, write it down, write down what you're going to say. But being able to communicate that to the parent in the most direct way possible, that's going to be your best friend as a therapist. Because if we don't communicate to the parent exactly what's going on, do you know how many questions are going to come at you? And then finally, you're just going to be like, okay, well, they said that they were feeling suicidal. Well, we have an ethical guideline and a moral code that we have to follow as therapists to inform that parent. If that child goes home and completes that suicide, that's now, unfortunately, another issue that you get to deal with. And I'm going to tell you, it's much easier to be straightforward and honest with the parent than to walk around it. There is no need to walk around suicide. We talk about it, we say it, we work through it that way. And it makes it easier when you're talking to that client, because I can guarantee you that that client who's coming into you, or even your child that's coming to you and is concerned or worried about talking to you about suicide, if you haven't said the words at all or ever expressed it, while they're talking to you, they're going to have a more difficult time coming back to you again. And Cammie, being a therapist, that's going to be a huge deal for you. If this kid comes in and they are just like so out of sorts, just ask the question, are you feeling suicidal?
I had a 6-year-old who wrote me a note that she wanted to kill herself, and I reported it because I'm a foster grandparent at a school, and I reported to the teacher, and it got reported to the counselor and the social worker, but the parent didn't want the child to have help, and it took over 2 years till that child crashed, and almost, till she really crashed, and she's getting help now through your agency, but it took 2 years till she bottomed out totally, till they got her help, and it was hard to watch.
So in instances where you feel like the parent isn't going to be supportive, or for the parents here that have a challenging time with looking at therapy services, which I'm guessing you probably don't since you're here talking to us, but sometimes it can be really scary, right? Because the parent has to check with themselves, right? All of a sudden it's, what did I do wrong as a parent? How can I fix this? I need to figure out how I can change this. I can do all the things at home. Well, that's kind of part of it, right? As a parent, we have to learn to change the way that we communicate too. I am a parent of 2 children, and because of that, I have to learn to check my emotions as well. I deal with children who have suicidal thoughts and all the extra that goes with it, right? And in order for me to be able to communicate with the children here, I'm also having to learn to communicate with my children at home. And so when it comes out and someone is having an issue, say there's an explosion, it's really about saying, okay, how are you really feeling right now? Let's talk about that, right? If the parent doesn't want to get help with the child, it's okay for the child to learn, right? We send our kids to school to learn every day. This is the same process. In order for our children to learn emotions that we've had a challenging time with, why wouldn't we send them to someone that can teach them? Do we have any other questions? So in the chat line, Pam has put the National Suicide Prevention Hotline phone number. I love this phone number. I have texted these people because I wanted to see what it was all about. 1-800-273-8255, or you can text the word home at 741-741. Someone will reach out to you and try to talk to you. If your child is old enough to use the phone, or Cammie, you said you have kids, that you work with, you could definitely give them that text line. They love texting. And I actually texted a whole conversation with someone. They were really kind. They make sure that you're safe. If they get to a point where they are incapable of talking the person through this, they will help you reach the right people in your area. So it's a wonderful line to call and message.
Yeah. For parents that might be wondering, can you talk a little bit about the crisis services that FSGC provides, and how do they know when they should call? What constitutes a crisis? I know it's different for everyone, but you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Family Service Guidance Center, we have crisis department. We have 3 crisis clinicians plus a director. And the 3 crisis clinicians are 2 females, myself and another female. And then we have 1 male crisis clinician who's Spanish speaking. The other female crisis clinician actually speaks German and Turkish. So we kind of have like a really cool diverse group over here. Within that realm, we deal with all different kinds of crises, and a crisis can be something as simple as my child had suicidal thoughts today and they were telling me about it and I don't know how to deal with it, all the way to my child had an explosion, they cut themselves and I have no idea what I'm doing because they said they want to kill themselves and I don't know where to go from here. We will deal with basically that entire realm from the low side all the way to the high side. And we will help navigate the parent through the process of possible hospitalization, safety planning, crisis planning, and getting you to services if you need them, school services. We try to communicate a little bit with the schools, not a whole lot. We do have school providers, so they can go through there as well. And then what was your second question? What was the second thing, Pam? Oh, when to call. You call when you feel like you can't handle it. It is that simple. It's literally that simple. If your kid comes to you and they're like, I'm feeling suicidal, or you ask that question because your kid says something that's like out of the norm and you're like, are you feeling suicidal? And they're like, yes. I mean, you can hop on that phone number immediately, 232-5005. They said that I could call if I'm feeling a crisis. I have no idea how to handle this. Boom. We will be there for you. We have a 24-hour line. We have an on-call clinician every day. The HIS number that picks up, they are also trained clinicians, so they will be able to help you as well. And they kind of help determine if you need to talk to another clinician on top of that, which is where they call the crisis line, or call and speak to the on-call clinician at the time. So yeah. Are there any other questions? That means I covered everything? What? Okay.
All right, I'll chime in.
Go ahead.
So I have an 11-year-old son, and we have some suicide in our family, and it's not really a word that we talk about, but it's Uncle Chris passed away, or cousin is no longer with us. And I think it's just, again, that stigma, just saying the word suicide. And I think part of my fear and even saying it is, I know it's irrational, but am I giving him an idea? I don't want to talk about it because I don't want him to learn about it. I want to shelter him from it, which, again, irrational thought, but that's me as a parent, is why I don't feel comfortable talking about it, because I don't want to scare him. I don't want to give him any ideas.
So Teresa, you are not alone in that fear, right? So the thing that we like to say here in crisis is that if you have suicidal thoughts, it's not going to matter whether someone talks about it or not. It's probably going to be more of a relief. The reason is because that means that somebody else is finally understanding what you're thinking. The second thing is that when somebody completes a suicide, the likelihood that somebody who was close to them completes suicide goes up. So talking about it, getting it out in the open is important. Now, I'm going to ask a weird question, but does your child know that he killed himself?
No.
Okay.
We've said that he died and she died. We haven't told him the specifics. And that's what I'm struggling with is, do we give them the details? Is that going to be scary to him? Is it going to give him ideas?
So you don't have to give him those details if he doesn't already know them. But I am going to say that if that ever does come up, it's okay to be honest about it. And it's okay to talk about the fact that he had mental health issues, right? Suicide, just if it's something that you're dealing with, I think it's okay to communicate that. Now, I'm not going to say specifically that telling your son how his uncle died is a great plan, like, right? Like that doesn't have to happen. But I do think talking about, the importance, or at least even for your family, maybe even talking about, the importance of taking care of yourself, taking care of your mental health, talking about your emotions, right? It doesn't have to relate back to what happened to the uncle, right? It can just be why we're talking about it, right? Is because I think it's important that we talk about how our mental health, like how we're feeling, is important, because I don't want you to ever feel alone. I don't want you to feel however it is, because it's okay that he died, right? That was his choice. That was what happened. And we are going to deal with that as a family. Grief counseling might be a good plan if that's something that you're concerned about. And at no point do we ever put it in somebody's head that suicide is like, we don't give you, just because we talk about it, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And actually there is research that shows that the more we talk about it, the less it happens.
Yeah.
The less chance it has of happening.
And that's why I want to become more comfortable talking about it, is just for that reason. If I'm open about it, if we have conversations about it, hopefully be less like, kind of like why you talk to kids about drugs, why you talked about sex with kids, you talk about it so that they're not being educated by somebody you'd rather them not be educated by.
Exactly. So when you feel comfortable, and this is with all the parents, right? When you feel comfortable talking about suicide, have that talk, right? It doesn't mean that just because you say, oh, well, this happened with your uncle. And if the kid starts asking more questions, it's because kids are very concrete. They need answers, right? If your child was to call you and say, where are you? And you were to be like, oh, I'm just out. They don't like that, right? They don't like that at all. You're out. Where are you out? Out where? Who are you with? Why are you there? Well, like all of a sudden you get 72 questions, right? It's the same thing with death. It's the same thing with suicide. Somebody dies, they're going to ask a question. How did they die? They were sick. Oh, sometimes that's enough. What were they sick with? Mental health issues. If they continue the questions, that means they're not getting enough information, enough concrete information to know. You can do it within the developmental range that will be beneficial for the child. You've got to remember that. Keep it within the developmental range. You can stay general if that helps, but still staying within the realm of mental health, that's going to encourage the child to know that, hey, this is what happened. And well, why? Because he needed to get help and we were working on it, right? It's just like if somebody dies from cancer, we're not going to say they died because they were old. They died because they were sick. Well, what were they sick with? Cancer. What's cancer? That's when you educate them.
Right.
And yes, it's scary. It is scary. Nobody wants to say how somebody died. I'm not saying you have to go into all the details like you were talking to me, right? You don't have to do that. Keep it within the realm of an 11-year-old. And you can even say, when you get older, we can talk about it more. Right now, just know that he passed away because he was very sick. And if that's what's more comfortable for you right now, that's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Teresa, I thought I would share. I am a parent. I am not a clinician. I'm just a marketing person. But I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with a gentleman named Kevin Hines, who attempted to take his own life by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. He is an amazing speaker. Kevin Hines is his name. There are all kinds of things out on YouTube, presentations that he gives that really helped me. We brought him into Topeka several years ago, and the way he tells the story, his own story about how he felt in the multiple times that he would just stop and wait for someone to ask him if he was okay. And he says that the minute he jumped off the bridge, he didn't want to die. So something that I just saw on Facebook, it just said people who die by suicide don't want to end their lives. They want to end their pain.
Mhm.
And that just really resonated with me. So if any of you get the chance, and if you know, because it is such a difficult topic, it might be, it was really life-changing for me to listen to hear him talk, because I was able to kind of put myself in his shoes and understand from a person who has suicidal thoughts. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
So he's actually somebody that they use a lot in graduate school. And one of the main things that we forget about people who are dealing with suicidal thoughts or who are wanting to complete a suicide is that they just want someone to be there. He went through his entire day. I'm going to give you a little summary. He went through his entire day from the moment he woke up to the moment he jumped off that bridge, the exact moment he jumped off that bridge. He told himself, if one person asks me how I'm doing, I won't do it. He sat on a bus, cried, drove like 30 minutes or something, got himself ready, walked down his normal street, went on the bus, was sobbing on the bus, was standing at the Golden Gate Bridge. This is a very short summary. And when you watch the video, I'm doing it absolutely no justice. Was standing on the bridge about to walk to his jump spot, sobbing. A couple asked him to take their photo. He did. And nobody asked him how he was doing. If you ask someone, how are you doing? That's not going to put anything in their mind more than, oh, well, I'm okay. Are you really okay? Do you need someone to talk to? Being able to be that person who can just sit and listen, especially for your child, that's enough. If you're feeling suicidal, talk to me. If you're feeling like you want to hurt yourself, talk to me. I've had close people that I have had to evaluate before I got my degrees. And I literally just asked. And it was scary because this is somebody I care about. Are you feeling suicidal? And when they look at you and they're like, yeah. First thought in my head was, oh my God, what am I supposed to do next? Right? And I had some paper and I'll never forget it. I had a paper and I was like, okay, come with me because I'm not leaving you by yourself now. It's like they just need somebody there. Help them create a plan, get them to the right people. And if you can't be that person, which a lot of times people can't, this is rough. What I do is tough. I talk to people every day about how the depths of their heart and the way that they're feeling and the things that they're doing, nothing's right in my life anymore. Why am I even here? It's hard. And yeah, I say suicide, completed suicide, death, self-harming. I say those things every day. That doesn't make it easier. It's a challenge. It's going to be hard to talk about. It's supposed to be hard to talk about, but if they can't talk about it with you, who else do you want them to learn or talk about that with? You want them to be able to talk to you. And especially Cami, as the therapist, you want them to be able to open that door. You want to be able to open that door for them. It's just a small door, but sometimes it can lead to a gigantic room. That's all.
Very good. Thank you so much. I have, let me see if I can get some information on the screen to share with you. You know, we talked about just the sheer fact that COVID-19 has made parenting, grandparenting, fostering even harder these days. And my hat's off to each and every one of you, because taking the time tonight, it's huge. It's huge. And we hope you found it helpful. I wanted to share another resource here. We have a program. It is a national FEMA program, but we provide help to anyone who has been negatively impacted by the pandemic. So if you or someone you know who, let's say, is getting evicted or doesn't have enough food in the house or whatnot, we have staff members that can connect you and get you help in whatever way, shape, or form that you might need. So I wanted to share the information here. The best way to reach out to us is the website there in the black box, fsgctopeka.com/stronger/stronger. I encourage you to share this. And when I send out the link, I'll send the link to all of you once it's posted. I'll also attach this document just so that you have it as a resource. And I will also try to remember to send the remainder of the real world parenting conversation schedule. We do this once a month. We have some great sessions coming up. But like I said, all of the sessions are recorded. So you can always go back to the main fsgctopeka.com webpage and click on the blue button. I think it says parenting resources. All of the info, past recordings are there. So the next conversation is Thursday, October 21st. It's titled ADHD and Medication, Fact versus Fiction. So ADHD is our most common diagnosis and challenge that we treat kids for here. So we know there may be lots of questions. So with that, on behalf of all of us at Family Service and Guidance Center, thank you so much. And we hope you have a great evening and rest of the week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.